So, hello everybody and welcome. Thank you all for joining us this evening for our Lovely People webinar. And we have the lovely Marina Galan. Is that how you say your name? I didn't even check before.
Yeah, well, that's how you say it in English. Yes, that's correct.
So you'll have to forgive me then because I'm very English.
I'm not going to make you pronounce it in Spanish, don't worry.
Maybe you do that for us then. How would you pronounce it?
Marina Galan.
There you go. Perfect. I don't want to think
almost there. There you go. Thank you, Deb.
So it's really lovely to have you here with us. And one of the reasons that I started to do these webinars is because I just love to introduce all the lovely people I've come across through this understanding. And as we were saying just before the recording started, it's really lovely to hear what other people are seeing, because this understanding is a very personal thing. And we just never know when something someone else says is going to be that thing that makes all the difference in the world to somebody else. So we came across you because of the lovely Steph who has joined us tonight. So hi Steph.
You're going to have to match up next week.
Yeah, and Steph is going to be our lovely person next week. So you're going to have to, he said he was going to join us tonight to get some tips on what to say and how to be a lovely person. So
I hope he pays attention. Yes, good.
So very often we have people that are brand new to this understanding that listen to the recordings of these webinars. So if you don't mind, it would be really wonderful to hear from you something a little bit about maybe how you came across this understanding and what you see, you know, what you're seeing, what this understanding is for you. So.
Okay, well, I came to this understanding thanks to my husband, Angus. And we started having some conversations with friends of ours around happiness. We started getting curious about what happiness could be. And we started hosting dinners, asking people what they thought it was and how they went about it. And soon after that, we started wondering if there were happiness experts anywhere in the world. And we started looking for them.
Oh, wow.
And so we found them, we went to see them, and we started studying with them. And as it always happens, you know, one teacher leads you to another, And that's how we came across this. So soon enough, my husband was studying with Michael Neal in Supercoach. And he changed so much. And I was so upset. But he so wanted me to see it, but he came across it like the completely wrong way, like, oh, it's just your thinking, you don't need to do, let me coach you, you know. So that doesn't really work ever. And so I resisted for a very, very long time until he signed me up for an online program, which was quite a few months long. And that's where I started hearing something. Now, I had always studied a lot, like compared religions and Sufism and Buddhism and all sorts of things. And so I started finding, you know, bits of truth in what I was hearing and saying, well, okay, this makes sense. And you know how a lot of people say in the principles, I found the missing piece that made everything fall together?
Yes.
For me, it was completely the opposite. Like with the principles, I suddenly realized I had too many pieces that I was trying to fit together. And it became really easy to identify which ones were not part of the puzzle. So it was like, oh, right. I've been trying to get all these pieces to fit together and they just can't because I have more than I need. So it was so easy to just let go of everything that didn't make sense anymore and stay with the simplicity of the principles. And even though, I mean, truth is everywhere and we hear it in every single tradition, I think the simplicity with which the principles explain it and deliver it is unbelievable, you know, because it is not something, it is a description of something. And that makes all the difference.
Mm.
Yeah. So I think, to me, the principles are just that, a description of how life works, of how we work. But there is, and because it is a description, there is nothing to do about it. You just see it. Yeah.
Yeah, that is beautiful, isn't it? The fact, I just love how little there is for us to do, and that is very much been my latest learning really over the last couple of weeks with all the stuff that we're up to. It kind of keeps coming back. Yeah, there's just nothing to do, just wait and watch and allow. Even that's too much. It's kind of, you just see. Yeah, you see how it looks more and more to me every day like my life would work perfectly even without me here. It's kind of just doing it.
Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
So anyway, when I started seeing this, I ended up joining Michael Neal with his Super Coach Academy as well. And you know how you go into something thinking it's just for yourself and your life, and then life has other plans? There you go. That's what happened. And so I suddenly found myself teaching in rehab centers and in school in very challenged communities. And it doesn't really make any sense how I got there and how it all started happening. But it did. And you know, one thing leads to another and another and another. And now here I am talking with you guys. How cool is that?
Yeah.
It doesn't get any better than this.
No. It is amazing, isn't it? How I know sometimes we do physical meetups. You know, we have a reasonable crowd of people that come to our local meetups. And one of the questions that I often ask, you know, when we're talking about control and how much it looks as, you know, we kind of have this want to control our life and we think we are in control of all sorts of things. I kind of say, stop for a minute and think about, how did you end up in this room tonight? If you would have wanted to be here, how could you have orchestrated all the things that had to happen for you to be here? And it's a bit like this tonight, isn't it? You know, how many things would we have had to have been in control of? Said, right, let's meet and be on a webinar together, Marina. You know, having that, how would we have done that?
It would have seemed impossible, no?
Yeah.
Completely impossible out there. Yeah. And it just makes you realize to what extent it is working in the background.
Yeah.
Without you.
Yeah.
Whether you're aware of it or not.
I would really, really love to hear how you would describe what the principles are, or what, you know, something to point. If there's people, you know, who maybe listen to this and they're kind of like, yeah, you keep talking about these amazing principles and saying these things. What are you talking about? What is this fabulous understanding?
Right. That.
No pressure.
Because those are the easy questions, of course.
Yeah, the easy one first, yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Well, I would start by saying that it's just a description of how life works. It helps you understand yourself and the world and how you interact with it. If I had to describe every principle. Let's see.
I hate that question. It's my worst nightmare.
Okay. But you love making it, don't you?
Yeah, it's great to put someone else on the spot.
Right.
Where is this feeling coming from?
Exactly. Okay, so for me, the principle of mind would just be life, the energy of life itself, as it is happening now, as it is coming to be right now. You know, a couple of years ago, I was out walking in the fields and I was looking at everything around me and remembering how physicists say that, you know, there is reality and then it stops for a bit and then it is again and then it isn't and then it is. And I was wondering, you know, how much energy must it take for everything to just be again? And everything to just be again. And of course, then I realized that it didn't really need to stop, just the energy for it to keep being, to just continue. And I started looking up, you know, at the trees and the clouds and imagining all the planets above me. And it blew my mind just how much energy it would need for this to be right now.
Mm.
And all I could see was love and life. And that for me is mind. That energy that is present right here, right now, and that is feeding everything and being everything and expressing itself through everything. I was trying to explain this to my mother yesterday. It didn't go this well, you see. I think thought, okay, now I'll start with consciousness. I think consciousness is what we are. We are the ability for that to become conscious of itself, for that life to become conscious of itself. And the way we do it is through thought. That's it.
Well, I've got goosebumps. Yeah.
I guess that's a good thing.
That was, yeah, you were actually blowing my mind when you were describing that. You know, it is, we just take for granted the magnificence of that's all around us, don't we? It's so easy to kind of get into the drudge of life and take that magnificence totally for granted. And you just remind
me. It's just so ever present that it's difficult to see. It's yeah. I mean, that's the only word I can think of. You know, there is nowhere, nothing that it is not in. So yeah, we take it for granted.
We do.
Absolutely.
So how does understanding that or knowing that, how does that help when your teenage son throws a hissy fit and is being a pain in the neck, or your partner's upsetting you by saying something horrible to you, or life things, you know?
Oh yeah, I know.
Yeah, we all have them, don't we? Nieces, partners, sons, daughters,
aunties.
It's a never-ending list. Yes, I agree. And ourselves. Do not forget ourselves.
Oh yeah.
So it helps because it creates a space between the story and yourself, and then you can see the story, and you can see how it is being created. So, you know, if you are outside of your dream, your relationship to the dream changes completely, regardless of what is happening in the dream. So it creates this space of, right, this is what is being created through my thinking. And you relate to it as a creation of your thinking, not as a reality that you are immersed in. I think it takes away the personal. It gives us the freedom to play with it, inhabit it in a different way, in a myriad of different ways, you know. Even the one that allows you to not engage with it. Even the one that allows you to, okay, go ahead and believe it. Enjoy it for a while. You know?
Yeah.
So yeah, for me, it's freedom. That's just it. It's the freedom to think, feel and experience anything.
So you said that you have worked with a variety of different people. Can you, I mean, obviously, don't get into too many of the details for reasons, but can you share some of the stories, some of the things that you've seen people with difficulties and how it's made a difference in their lives? What sort of thing have you witnessed?
Oh, wow. Okay. In my experience working with people who are in difficult circumstances, in challenging circumstances, they are so thirsty for any notion that they are okay and that their reality is not real. That they just take it if you hand it to them. It doesn't take a lot. I think it's way more difficult when you're dealing with very successful people and you tell them it's not real. And they really want to hang on to it because it's given them status and, I don't know, popularity or whatever. But the people who are in difficult circumstances, they become like sponges to it. They are so enthusiastic about it. They just really want to hear that they are all right, that they are fine. And as soon as they see that, the places they go, they find their freedom to create. They have nothing else to lose. They really do. They don't. It really becomes a joy for them. Life becomes a joy for them because the chains that were binding him just dissolve. They just disappear. I am going back next week to work in in fact, it was the first school I worked in. And there's a new headmaster there, and she wants us to come in again and work with them. And I remember the boys in middle school realizing that they could do things outside what they were told they could do. and suddenly one of the boys wanted to be a writer, and another one wanted to be a rap singer, and these girls, they wanted to be dancers, and you could see them believing it, willing to try it. And how their relationships with the communities around them started changing. Like all the communities were, it was like a war between them, amongst them. And these boys suddenly started seeing the possibilities of building something together. And they went to the headmaster and they asked him if they could organize a football tournament between the communities. And the headmaster was horrified because every time the communities came together, there were gang fights and, there was blood and death. And it was like, what do you mean a football tournament? This is going to be horrible. It's going to be all over the news. And they talked him into it. And they asked me to go with them and go see the headmaster of every one of the schools. And they organized it, and it was beautiful. It was unbelievable. And that just, everybody in the communities, plural, started getting so curious around that. Mm-hmm. Just because they had this idea and they wanted to see if reality would work with them to accomplish it. Yeah, so in more than one way, this understanding allows you to become an accomplice with life, with the universe, work with it. There's this quote by Anthony de Mello that says, enlightenment is absolute collaboration with the inevitable. And so, of course, it brings the question, well, what is inevitable? You see? And there seems to be such an element of future in that word. But if you stop for a moment, you see that the inevitable is now, is this, as it is. And so that brings the question, well, what about collaboration with it? How do you collaborate with what is? It's an interesting question, no?
How do you collaborate with what is? For me,
become an accomplice.
Yeah, become an accomplice. Yeah, go with it. Live it, love it.
Support it, feed it, allow it, love it. God, how cool is that?
Yeah. I think when I first came across this understanding, it was kind of and the thing, like, for me, what this conversation has been about is this amazing spiritual side of life, you know, the things that you took, the universe and trees and the sky going on forever, that place that you took me to, and then kind of a football match between different kids in different communities. And I think I always had these things as two totally separate things. And for me, definitely what the principles do is kind of bring them onto the same page. Do you know what? There isn't this massive difference between those two things are so connected.
Yeah. Yeah, it dissolves the frontier between the sacred and the mundane, no?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But, you know, for me, it doesn't bring the mundane up to meet the sacred. It's kind of the other way around. It kind of brings the sacred down, most mundane, you know, until there is, I mean, really, nothing sacred.
Yeah. Nothing separate.
Nothing sacred. Nothing separate. Yeah, the essence itself is spirit. And so there is nothing that isn't, again, ever present. No. What do you think you can do with that? Yeah.
It opens up possibilities, doesn't it, when we see?
Yeah, and at the same time, you can do nothing. You see, that's what you were saying, you know, like there's nothing to do.
That's the paradox, isn't it?
It will be perfect regardless. It is still happening in the background, you know. I heard Anna Hornbach say the other day, suddenly when I heard the principles and a conflict that I didn't know I had was resolved inside me. I was like, well, there you go. That's how deep it runs in the background. Yeah. It resolves conflicts that you didn't know you had, and then you become aware of the conflict that you had when it gets resolved. No, because it is working for you, because it is you. You know, like you're talking about this separate, you know, the sacred and the mundane, and we tend to think about life and us.
Yeah.
And that frontier also disappears.
It is really
not, there is nothing that is not already, you know. And at the same time, you know, we become aware of the illusion and the possibilities of play within the illusion. But at the same time, that's all we can be aware of. We cannot see beyond the illusion to what actually is
Mm.
No?
Mm.
I was talking to a teenager yesterday about we were having this conversation, and we were talking about, well, how do you imagine, like, and if you could have another sense, like, let's say more behind the sixth sense that we are supposed to have, if you could have a seventh sense to perceive reality with, what would it be like? And we are absolutely unable to imagine it. You know, we have sight and we can hear and we can touch, but if you could design another one, what would it be like? There is nothing you can imagine outside what is for you already. So yeah, we become aware of the illusion and the possibilities of play within the illusion. But that's as far as we go.
Mm.
In the end, we have no way of knowing what is really going on.
Not from here.
No. But hey, you know what? If we can't, it's because we don't need to. So, and again, there's such freedom in that.
I've got those goosebumps again. I'm loving this conversation.
I'm loving it too, Deborah. Thank you.
Yeah. I just love the lightness of it, the fun of it. You know, it's so deep, it's so profound, it's so ordinary, it's so everyday, it's so like there's just nothing and everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And when you see that possibility creating anything else but fun and joy out of it, it stops making sense. Huh?
Well, Gavin has just said he's loving the conversation, but he's got to go. I think he might have gone already, but yeah. If you watch the recording, bye Gavin. I wonder if anyone that's watching this has got a question or a comment, if anyone would like to join in the conversation with us. You can either unmute yourself or wave around if you've got your picture on, and I can unmute you. If anyone would like to join in.
Nice and quiet again.
I'll join in. I unmuted myself already.
Oh, hi Terry.
Hi. I'm so happy I found this group. I saw the post come up, and Marina, you're very familiar to me, but I don't know if I've actually met you before on some other webinar, like with Michael Neal or something.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
You seem familiar.
It's a vast and small community.
Oh God.
I love everything you're saying. I have been around the principles for a little over a year. And the thing that I've found of late that seems to be forefront is this dropping away of the terms, the principles as terms. Because of the complexity, even though they're the simplest thing ever, they bring a complexity somehow in how I speak about it. And once I was able to just kind of drop the terms and go to what it's actually saying on an experiential level, that's really helped me to be able to share it more and not feel so tied to the right thing to say. Do you know what I mean? How to tell people about the principles. And I came to the principles with no principles in the principles. I came to the principles where that dialogue wasn't in it. And I think that's one of the reasons I was so attracted to it. It wasn't yet another dogma, coming from so many things that are about, this is it, these things, you do these things and all is well. So I'm really interested in sharing more and more about this. And it's not my interest to purposely not talk about the principles. If that's the conversation, that's great. If it's something else, that's great too. But I also know that this community is so vast and amazing and helpful. If there isn't a reference back to this brand of the principles, to be able to search on Google and YouTube and that sort of thing, which is what I thought was outstanding about it. I don't know what my question is, but I guess I don't want to, I'm not disconnecting from the principles because I love the principles. I totally embrace that they're describing something that's true, and they are an explanation, a description of how life works, and how to be able to share from that understanding in a way that doesn't require those words, that doesn't require that I teach somebody something about these 3 principles, because that doesn't come naturally to me. It doesn't come as a natural flow to the way I speak. But I can see the value of it. I mean, it's a huge value in my life. I listen a lot to Rupert Spira, I'm not sure his last name. And he had one of the things I listened to recently was on asking yourself the question, am I aware? And there's a moment within that question where thought drops away. A pure experience of awareness. And people who are not in the conversation around this bigger perspective may try to think about whether they're aware. Well, do I feel my foot? Do I, and they get real analytical about it. But what he's pointing at is this dropping away or dropping into an experience of. So while you were talking about mind, consciousness, and thought, I was wondering about mind, awareness, energy, love, life, all there is, all being in the same thing. But then consciousness felt like the awareness too, and thought is a form of the awareness. That's a form, a cat's a form, my glass is a form, a feeling is a form. So yeah, I don't even think I have a question. I'm just like interested in knowing more about how this is unfolding in the moment. And it's not like I need to grasp it and get it and know it so that I can share it. It's more like just a natural curiosity about what's happening and how that unfolds.
I think that word you're using, Terry, experiential, is key. Because for me, talking about the principles or trying to explain how life works is like trying to explain balance. You cannot understand balance if you don't experience it. I mean, a rational explanation of balance serves no one, serves nothing. And there are endless ways to experience balance. But unless I get you to stand up and then stand on one foot and then, ride a bike and then, I don't know, just come up with ways for you to experience it. You're not going to get it in the vast sense of the words, get it as experience. But I find that, for example, that sentence that you talked about, that quote, am I aware? Well, that embodies the principles themselves. Aware is consciousness, I am is thought, I is mind, am is thought. So you have all of them are there, like they're everywhere. But when you fall away from the words themselves and you come into the experience of all 3 of them together at the same time, being through you, well, then everything drops away. And you are left with the experience of being that awareness. Yes. Now, as I said at the beginning, truth is everywhere. This is just one way to talk about it. And for me, it works because it brings it back to how my mind works and how I experience. It doesn't talk about a truth outside of me that I need to see or I need to understand. It talks about the truth that is with me in it. And it explains me in it. And that is a little bit like what we were saying. It brings down to the mundane everything. It makes it easier to relate to. But what we are talking about is truth. The principles are just a description of it. And describing the description is very confusing. So yes, describe the description. Well, how do you do that? It's a conundrum. It's a catch-22. No, now every vehicle that talks about truth is truly meant to disassemble when you get there. You see what I mean? That's how they are meant to be designed. Do not stay with the vehicle, because the vehicle, when you cross the finish line, the vehicle needs to come apart. Otherwise, you'll stay with the vehicle and think that's it. Mm. Now, the principles are not necessarily a vehicle. They are a description of vehicles. But that's where it gets complicated, you see, because the description doesn't fall apart as the vehicle can. You see the difference? So the description applies not only to the vehicle, but also to the path, but also to the finish line, but also to the truth, but also for you in the equation, because it is a description of the race, if you want to call it that, the path, the highway. And because it is a description, it makes it easier for people to see. It makes it easier for people to understand. And then want to get an experience of it. The balance. It brings them into the experience. But that's all. And isn't it interesting, Terry, that, when we have the experience of the terms being confusing, well, we are creating that experience too. So,
totally.
It's just going back to, well, yeah, this is what is happening. And maybe that is why pointing to what is happening in the moment is the best way to talk about them. Whatever is present now, that's what you have. Now has everything you need for anything. Now has anything you need to become enlightened, to be awake, to invent a story, to get lost in it, to awaken again from it, to whatever. So this moment has everything you need for whatever. It is complete, nothing lacking.
I love that. What I find to be really interesting for me in this understanding and this sharing of it is, like you said, everything that's happening in the moment. So my comments, even on this webinar with all of you, I like to call it grist for the mill, for lack of a better way of saying it. But it's like demonstrating the truth. It's like happening. It's in action right now. And then as you're speaking, after I spoke, my mind was going, it's like okay, yeah, that's right. It's happening now. Again, it's always happening now. It is the way it works. And yeah, I take that in my more clear moments of seeing it. I can take that that shift, whether I'm doing artwork in the moment and stuff comes up and I start to feel like I got to run away or I got all kinds of judgments about it. And then I see it. I see that, and it's kind of humorous, or it's, I remember when I used to really think that was true, you know? So yeah, so from that perspective, I feel like anything that's in the moment being said or offered or experienced is an opportunity to see things in a bigger way. So I really appreciate your response to what I said, because I did come into this understanding with a lot of baggage around not wanting more terms to teach people or to, you know, and I know I'm not the only one on this planet, from my perception, out of my thinking, that pushes away when they see 3 principles. You know, that's like, you know, they don't want to go there again. You know, they already went through Buddhism, they already went through Catholicism, they already, you know, all the different things that we have in this world that are pointing at the same thing, but maybe with a little more stuff around them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but that's where we start resenting the vehicle, because it got us lost. But the vehicle cannot get you lost. That's the whole thing. You see, you need the vehicle in order to get there. But then you become attached to the vehicle, and then you resent the vehicle for the attachment you developed around it. And then you see it. You step outside of it and you see it. You know, it's like stepping outside of, you know, moving sand. You know, quicksand, where you, if you move, you start thinking, and then you step outside. It's like, oh right, that's what's going on.
That's a great analogy too.
But that's the thing. You have created the illusion that you are inside the quicksand, but you never are really in it.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah, and so the vehicle, you know, the only vehicle we have is words. So do they limit you or do they free you? Metaphors, do they limit you or do they free you? Well, both. That's the thing. It depends on whether you're looking at them as a vehicle or as something to get attached to. But whichever it is, you are creating it. And awareness frees you from it. That's all it does. It reminds you of your freedom.
This is the perfect conversation for me today. I just thank you so much.
Thank you, Terry.
Yeah, thank you, Terry. That was amazing. Thank you. That was a brilliant conversation. I can't tell you how touched I am to have witnessed that. That was lovely. So thank you both.
Thank you.
Has anyone else got anything they would like to add or share or ask? I'm just loving the silence, actually. When Terry was when you were talking, then it just was really coming to me how this isn't in the words, is it? And it was beautiful what you were saying about how words get us into trouble, words get us out of trouble, or we do that with those words. It's beautiful.
It's so beautiful to have that perspective, Marina. You know, based on the way I've always thought in the past before I came across this understanding and really got, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. And yes, that is what's going on. I might have taken what you said and thought a lot about it. I made a mistake. Oh my God, I don't know. But instead, there's just like this opening to seeing something that was going on in the moment with me just now that just is such a bigger view now. You know, there's rather than me collapsing in on it, feeling like, oh, I thought I got this, and now I see I didn't get it. It's more like, oh wow, how cool that's coming up now, and I get to see something in a bigger way. And I can see how I had attachment, or not, what's the opposite of attachment, pushing away of the three principles terminology because of my own baggage around how I came into the understanding. And boy, there's another thing you could teach about. It's like everything is available for sharing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, when they say the moment is complete and it has everything you need to fill in the blank, that means there is something to get lost in, something to awaken from, something to awaken to. And a million perspectives around it. But that's the thing. In every single moment, we are getting lost in something, inevitably. Sometimes we see it, sometimes we don't. Sometimes when we see it, seeing it frees us from it. Sometimes it doesn't, and it works out in the background, like what happened with Hannah. And sometimes it doesn't, and we stay there, and it's still okay. Because as processes of awareness that we are, how do you judge a process of awareness? On what terms? There is nothing that you can become aware of that can be judged as, incorrect. So whatever awareness brings, awareness doesn't run from anything. It doesn't need to. It's just experience, and it comes as it is. Nothing is needed around it. But the opportunity is ever present to get lost, to awaken, to become aware, to. And that, what that thing they say, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. That's not because when you are ready in the middle of the Sahara, then everything will be, set out so that a riding horseman will come to you with the answer. No, it's because truth is literally everywhere. It is ever present. But until you are ready to see it, you don't see it. But the second you are, it's there. And truth is in you, in what you're doing and what you're feeling in nature, in the cup of coffee and the glass of water and your creation and your rejection as well, and your attachment. All of it is pointing to the same truth. And that's the advantage in this conversation, that what we are talking about is truth. And truth is self-evident, and it doesn't need anyone to defend it. It stands for itself. But when you become its accomplice, it's really cool.
It's such fun.
Yeah.
This that we have, this world we live in, the way that we are, the way that our experience is created, it's just hilariously, beautifully, amazingly, oh yeah.
Rich. It's just rich, no? And get this, you are so completely loved that the entire universe contemplates you in absolute respect of the experience you are creating for yourself. It does not interfere. That is how free you are. You can even subtract yourself from the experience as an entity, and it will be respected. It will be allowed, it will be loved, it will be fed, it will be supported. That is how free you are. That is how loved we are. Doesn't it blow your mind? God. And we complain because there's no strawberry flavor in the ice cream shop. Come on.
And that's totally respected.
Yes.
And perfect.
And perfect. And it's proof of what is going on, and it's proof of your freedom, and it's proof of your absolute lovableness.
Mm.
Yeah. So I understand what you're saying, Terry, about how you could have collapsed in it and said, "Oh, I was doing it wrong. I thought I had it and I didn't." But that's the whole beauty of emotions. Whenever you are feeling an emotion like that, that is your red flag going up, telling you you're getting lost in a story. And that is the constant invitation to a wider view, to falling away from what you are creating and seeing how you are creating it, that you are creating it. And the beauty of it, not because you need to stop creating it, just because there is such joy in just seeing how you are creating it, that you are creating it. And that invitation is ever present too. But you can engage in it if you want.
I think the only reason I have a sense of moving forward with what comes to me in a conversation like this or on camera anywhere is the knowing that all is well, that no matter what shows up in the morning, in the moment, whether it's my not seeing something and then seeing it, or it's so not impacting anything true or real about anything. So there's no risk in life. It feels like you're just moving out and playing with what's happening.
Talk about freedom.
Yeah. That was what was coming to my mind. All of this, all of that we've just described, that whole conversation, and we just get it with no risk whatsoever. My my mind has been totally blown with this conversation tonight.
Thank you, Deborah. Mine too. Mine too. Thank you so much.
Mind-blowing experience.
It's just been wonderful. Thank you so much. That's beautiful.
Thank you all. I've enjoyed this deeply. Deeply
Enjoyed it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh gosh, it's been an absolute delight and a pleasure. The only thing that I have to say now is, are you shaking in your shoes, Steph?
I would be.
I'm kind of used to it. So there's an old Charlie Brown Peanuts cartoon where Charlie Brown and Linus and everybody is sitting there looking up at the clouds, and then one of them says, "What do you see in the clouds?" And I forgot who it was. Probably wasn't Linus. Somebody said, "I see the stoning of St. Stephen. I can see the pain and the absolute horror of the situation, and it speaks of the way of the world and humanity." And when he finished, one of the other kids said to Charlie Brown, "So what do you see, Charlie Brown?" And he said, "Well, I was going to say a ducky and a horsey, but I don't." So that's what I talk about. I'm the ducky and the horsey person.
Come on.
I have heard you talk, Steph. I am very much looking forward to next week.
Me too.
Because
And me, I love ducks and horses.
it's all allowed. It's all perfect.
It's all perfect. And it's not horses and duckies. Come on. Come on. I've heard you talk too.
As if I make it up to be.
Yeah. Right, there you go.
So thank you all so much for being here with us this evening. In case you haven't grasped from that, our lovely person next week is going to be lovely Steph. So he's going to be in the hot seat next week. If anyone would like to come along and join us again, you can use the same link you used tonight, or you can, if you get confused and lose it, you can find the link on deborahsimmons.co.uk on Facebook. I'm sure if you contact Marina, if any of you are more, know Marina well, I'm sure she will pass on the link to you, or put you in touch so that you can get here if you'd like to join us again. I'm sure it's going to be equally mind-blowing in quite a different way, which is just so brilliant, because this is what I love about these conversations. No two of these webinars have ever been the same. And if you said to me, which one was your favorite? Oh, the one I'm on in that moment, because they're just all awesome in their own way. So yeah, there is a back catalogue of these, the Lovely People webinar. If you want to go onto my YouTube channel, Deborah Simmons on YouTube, you can find other ones and other guests, and as I said, they're equally mind-blowing but totally different.
But we are going to give Steph harder questions, aren't we?
Oh, absolutely.
Next
We're
week.
going to spend a whole week now.
I fully expect that.
Hardest question.
Fully expect that.
I'm going to ring up every 3 principals practitioner I know
Yeah.
and say, what's the hardest question
Yeah.
you've ever been asked?
Yeah. I am fully expecting abuse.
Yes.
We
aim to please.
So yeah, just thank you so much, everybody who's been here tonight, and yeah, go and enjoy the rest of your day, evening, whatever it is you're doing, and yeah, we would love you to join us at this time any Wednesday. So, and it's been a delight and a pleasure to meet you, Marina. I cannot wait until we get to do it in person properly.
Hopefully soon.
Hope
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Okay.
Goodbye, everybody. Thank you
Bye.
very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.